Christian Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents What If Jesus Was Serious About Justice? A visual guide to the good news of God's judgment and mercy by Skye Jethani. Narrated by Skye Jethani. For Tim Johnson, He has shown you, O mortal, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Micah chapter 6, verse 8. Introduction. Yes, and. Back in 2010, Glenn Beck, the popular cable news political commentator, told his millions of viewers to run as fast as you can if your church ever talks about social justice. Unfortunately, Beck never bothered to define what he meant by social justice, except that it was a perversion of the gospel because, he argued, Jesus spoke about only individual compassion and not systemic evil. This kind of rhetoric has been commonplace within some streams of the American church for the last 150 years, and its origin is important for understanding the current shape of popular Christianity. So let's start with a brief journey through church history. In the beginning, Christians understood their mission as having two dimensions rooted in the words of Jesus. When asked what the greatest commandment was, he said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself." Matthew chapter 22, verses 37 and 39. This is why for centuries, Christian mission involved both proclaiming the good news of peace with God through Jesus Christ, loving God, and the reformation of social evils, loving neighbors. And it is why the earliest Christians, as recorded in the book of Acts, cared for the poor, overcame barriers of race and class, and proclaimed the gospel to people outside the church. These dual values of personal faith and cultural transformation marked the church for generations and came to define what a Christian was. For example, in the 4th century, a group of Christians brought food, water, and clothing to Egyptian prisoners. When one of the prisoners, a young peasant named Pachomius, asked who these caregivers were, he was told they were Christians. "What's a Christian?" Pachomius asked. "They are people who bear the name of Christ, the only begotten Son of God, and they are merciful to everyone, including strangers." The encounter transformed Pachomius's life. He later converted, was baptized, and became a leader of the church in North Africa. This wedding of gospel proclamation, evangelism, and gospel demonstration, justice, continued to mark Christianity throughout the centuries, and individual acts of compassion transformed into movements of social reform. Christians invented hospitals and public schools, reformed prisons and the criminal justice system, abolished slavery, ended child labor, and advocated for women's suffrage. And these examples of neighborly love coexisted with the invitation to be reconciled to God through Christ and the forgiveness of sins. But this two-dimensional mission began to change in the United States in the mid-19th century. The country was deeply split over the issue of slavery. Abolitionists in the North argued that race-based chattel slavery was utterly incompatible with Christianity. Whites in the South, however, selectively read the Bible to argue precisely the opposite. In 1861, the Civil War erupted. Many pastors and churches, particularly in the border states, were eager to avoid a schism and somehow maintain their flocks. That's when an upstart theological teaching recently imported from England exploded in popularity. It said the church's mission only had a single dimension, the saving of souls by proclaiming the forgiveness of sins through faith in Christ. And just as important, it said loving one's neighbors through the reformation of social evil was pointless. Departing from 1800 years of Christian doctrine, this new theology said the world was racing toward imminent destruction and would be replaced. Therefore, reforming society was as pointless as polishing the brass on a sinking ship. All that
Sample complete. Ready to continue?